welcome to another meeting of our Agent Wealth Builder Mastermind, and super excited to welcome Sadie Halliday on here. And before we start, I just have a few slides I just want to share to kind of get started. I'm gonna pop up and share my screen here. So let's see, let's get this going. All right, can everybody see this?
Yeah.
Awesome. So, as you know, the Web Mastermind, it's every Wednesday live at 12 p.m. Eastern Time. We also broadcast this on YouTube at 12 p.m. on Fridays. So you'll see it online and as well. So really appreciate the support and the growth as we continue to build and have some amazing guests on our mastermind. So as I mentioned, Sadie Halliday is she runs Halliday Real Estate and is part of EXP Luxury, and she's going to share some tremendous value with you on this call. So you really want to have a pen and pad ready or a laptop or whatever you use to take notes because she just always shares incredible wisdom. So shout out to Sadie for hopping on to the call. I really appreciate that. And as we go on, guys, we encourage you to share, like, and subscribe on YouTube. We are on YouTube as well, Agent Wealth Builder. That's our handle there. As you can see, we're growing. We hit 100 subscribers actually, so it's really exciting. So just really appreciate the support for that. And also want to shout out our Instagram account, which has the same handle, of course, Agent Wealth Builder, and just tremendous value. We share these clips and shorts from our calls here on both Instagram and YouTube as well. So just yeah, thank you for supporting and connecting with us on Instagram as well. And as you know, we are powered by EXP. So I want to shout them out. And I know the World Cup it wrapped up recently, but I love watching it because most of the teams that are in the World Cup are countries that have an EXP presence in them. So that's really cool to see. As you can see, the list is there from any countries from the US, UK, France, Spain, and on and on. So we're in 29 countries going on 30, the 30th being Luxembourg. Really excited for that. And there's tons of opportunity for EXP. So if you want to connect and talk more about that, I'd love to just chat with you on a separate video call as well. And we are also powered by Vista Realty Group. And what I love about our team is that our value prop is super simple and it's just life by design. Okay, so everything we do from our systems to recruiting to our meetings, it's all built out. And we are looking for folks not just to buy and sell real estate, but to use real estate to fund their life. So that's something that's really important to you and it's a value to you. We'd love to connect with you and just have a conversation and how we can help you further grow your real estate career to be able to live the life that you want to live by design. So shout out to Visit Realty Group. And this is our final call on our July lineup. We just had incredible speakers from Carlene Hilaire, founder of Do It Afraid, and I kind of I shared on my call just three books that I enjoy. As I mentioned, I'm an avid reader, so shared those books with you guys. And Mike Vizda just did an amazing job on the 22nd, just sharing tons of value and just his main point takeaway was get real to get right. And as you know, Sadie Halliday is on this call, and I'm super excited to have just to have this conversation and further share her story and wisdom with you. And I just wanted to quickly just put this on the screen as well, because you may be asking, how do I connect? Of course, you can. I know my wife really likes Love Island, so that phrase when they want to have a conversation is like, "Can I pull you for a chat?" Like, if you want to pull me for a chat, like this is how we can chat. But seriously, let's connect. That's my email there. You can see the information's on there as well. You could also just drop it live on this chat or in the comments on YouTube or Instagram or wherever you see us online. And also feel free to drop the word growth in there if you want to connect as well. So yeah, feel free to again pull me for a chat. Just a summary of our mastermind, and we're just looking to create a pathway for folks to become millionaires through real estate and through different avenues. So we're really excited, and this concept comes from the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. So it's really great, and I really encourage feedback because this a collective feedback just helps to make us all better on these calls. So, and without any further ado, I want to welcome. I'm going to unshare my screen, and I'd like to give the floor to Sadie. So. Sadie, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, David. I'm super happy to be here, and I really admire all that you guys are doing at the Vista Group and your partnership with EXP.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, any questions right off the bat that you want to talk through? Anything specific?
Okay, well, I have tons of questions. I think the first thing I'd like to know, just like for folks here, I know we had our conversation that I enjoyed, but what's
Yeah.
your story? Like, what got you from real estate to just, from where you are to what you're doing now with EXP Luxury and your real estate group? And yeah, I'd love to know that.
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you. So I started in real estate about 8 years ago, and I come from a background in healthcare philanthropy. So a lot of my work there was one-on-one donor stewardship. And I felt like when I made the transition to real estate, I was probably a little naive in that transition because when you're working in philanthropy, you're talking to people about major gifts and naming buildings and philanthropic opportunities that they're aligned with. And I naively thought, okay, if I can get somebody to write a check for $1 million and they put a plaque on a building, how easy would it be to get somebody to write a check for $1 million when they actually get a building? So I went in just thinking that, like, wow, it can't be that hard. But again, I feel like that optimism has served me really well. And I think the other thing that was helpful is that because I had been already working in the community, I had a lot of relationships that I was able to transition to. And I think one of the challenges early on was I had been at my previous job for about 15 years, and everybody sort of associates you with what you do in your role in the community. And when I transitioned over to real estate, and this is something that I have the conversation with new agents a lot, is getting people to sort of transition so they're coming to you to start to associate you with real estate, right? They're thinking about, okay, I'm thinking about real estate, so that's where reaching out to your sphere, reaching out to your contacts, all those things that are potential areas of business, and what does that look like and where is that business coming from? So for me, I think a big part of the first year was really just trying to transition people around, oh, this is what I'm doing now. Um, and then from there, a big part of it is working to build up that trust and credibility because it's sometimes hard to have that confidence and credibility when you're brand new and don't necessarily have the reps behind you to get people to want to work with you.
Yeah, wow. And you said you worked somewhere for 15 years. Well, that was the job in
Yeah,
philanthropy.
so
15
that was
years.
a hospital, a local community hospital, and a lot of that was capital campaign work and one-on-one donor stewardship. So similar to real estate, it was very much relationship building, right? It may take 2 or 3 years to close a particular gift, just like it might close a particular real estate deal. There's transactions that we know that have been in the pipeline for years and years, or there's a relationship that we've been working on for many years, knowing that somebody has a transition coming up and you build that relationship over time. So when it's time for them to make that transition, you know that you've got that relationship in place to support them through that transition.
Oh, wow. Okay, so
And
that.
that's where I draw a lot of those parallels is
Mhm.
truly around relationship building and then how are you helping these people to transition to whatever's next, whether it's a philanthropic gift or a big move or some kind of transition, but what are you doing to sort of put yourself in that position of support as a resource for them?
Oh wow, it's incredible. And would you say, I guess that kind of segues into one of my questions, and for folks, because a lot of the folks on this call, on these calls are new to real estate or just kind of trying to
Yeah.
figure out where they are in life. And
Yeah.
so for you, just starting in real estate, okay, what was the first thing you focused on? If it was like, if you were to say
Yeah.
like, well, the first thing you wanted to
Yeah.
do was it relationships? Was it something else or?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think for me it was the relationships. What I did is I wrote a really nice letter introducing myself, and I made a spreadsheet of everybody that I knew. People that I knew, my parents' friends, anybody that I knew, and there was hundreds of people on the list. And a funny story, the brokerage I was at the time was a little like old school, and it was my first brokerage. And the broker said, because I had gotten a whole bunch of Wonder Woman stamps and I wanted to put Wonder Woman stamps on my letters because they were out at the time. And I thought I'm going to manifest this. And she said, well, we only use American flag stamps here. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, I really like these Wonder Woman stamps. And that was we butted heads a little bit, but eventually she agreed that it was okay for me to use the Wonder Woman stamps on all my letters. But I remember that very first outreach of what I wanted to do to get my name out there.
Wow.
And she didn't think that was a good idea, but I was manifesting like I'm going to put all the Wonder Woman stamps on, and I sent the mailing out with them. So, and
Wow.
I got a great response to that. And a lot of times it was like, hey, we'll keep that in mind. Um, I had somebody that I knew that had multiple apartment buildings. They wrote back and they said, hey, this is really exciting. I'll connect with you at some point when I'm ready to sell. But it was slow over time, relationship building. And I think the other thing that I did that was most critical to my success and my learning was that I was in an office with a number of other people. And
Wow.
for the first year to even probably close to 3 years, I took any opportunity that I could to learn from other people. If there was an opportunity to host an open house, if there was an opportunity to shadow someone and go on a showing with them, if they had just written a contract, I would say, hey, can I just read that? Sometimes I would say, do you mind if I just sit here and listen to you talk on the phone so I can hear what you're saying and how you're communicating with people?
Wow.
Or say, hey, can I read that email and that negotiation? Because I felt like when I passed the test and had my real estate license, I had like this much knowledge, right? But the knowledge for real estate is expansive, right? Because every transaction is different and we learn something new every day. And I was humble enough to know that there was so much more that I didn't know that I just kept putting myself in the position to learn from anybody that I could that was willing to teach me, whether it was at my own brokerages or others. And I was super fortunate because there were so many people that were willing to teach me and let me learn from them.
Mm.
And that's my biggest piece of advice to new agents is truly take any opportunity you can to learn, any opportunity you can to pick up buyers, any opportunity you can to be of service, whether it's covering showings for people, whether it's sitting in on appointments with people, anything that you can do to put yourself in the environment of learning, absolutely do it.
Wow, it's amazing. So there's so much to unpack there. I love that. And I feel like in real estate, it's a phrase that I hear often that I kind of struggle with it. People tend to say it as a joke and they say, hey Sadie, you drinking from a fire hose? In my brain, I was sharing earlier before we started, is that I use frameworks and mental models to help me think. And my favorite is first principles thinking, which you take any topic and you strip it down to like its core building blocks and reason it from there. So like in the context of learning, like my brain is goes, okay, I always like to go like, what are like the 1 to 3 things I need to know? So like of all the
Yeah.
things that you learned, like are those like would you say that those are like the 1 to 3 things that you try to learn is like relationships? Was it learning from people? Is it something else that, or
Yeah,
like
and then
to
so
simplify it?
the other thing I would say too is that I maintained a very consistent schedule. My kids were young at the time, so I'd get them up, get them out the door, get them to school, and the minute or daycare, and the minute I dropped them off, I would go to the office and I would stay there. So a lot of times people think, oh, I'm not busy, I don't need to go into the office, or I'm not busy, I don't have anything to do right now. But I made sure that every single one of my days while my kids are at school and even after were filled with real estate focus, any kind of activity that was going to get me busy. Even if I didn't have my own business, I was still doing anything I could to learn, whether it's hopping on a podcast or again, like shadowing somebody, because when you don't have that structure and you're not busy, that's when I feel like you can start to spin a little bit.
Mm,
So the biggest thing too is putting structure in your day, looking to other people who are busy how you want to be. Ask them how they structure their day. Ask them how they're doing lead generation. Um, and then pick one thing that's going to work for you, right? So there's so many things in real estate that'll say work your sphere and mail this and do social media and do this. And the one that's going to work best is the one that you're actually going to do. So if you're a new agent, like you said, drinking out of a fire hose, it's so easy to feel that overwhelm, right? So when you're first starting out, pick one of those things and say, okay, this is the neighborhood I'm going to farm. This is what I'm going to focus on, or this is the skill set. And it can be social media, it can be wherever you choose to drill down on, but pick that and focus on it and stick with it because the results will come, but it's not going to happen overnight, right? This isn't a business where there's instant gratification, right? You build over time. And I
mm.
think that's critical for new agents too.
Wow, I love that. And I've heard the phrase too, like anything works, nothing doesn't. So that seems like that's kind of like what you're getting at as well too. Or is it just like just trying something that works for you?
Yeah, so I mean, when you get into that real estate space, I mean, if you start following it on social media, there's gurus for everything and there's every system. And when it comes down to it, it's back to the basics of your scripts and your follow-up. And the other thing that I would say for new agents is start to know your market really well. One thing
Mm,
that I did every day was when I opened up the MLS, I had the towns that I was working in. I would look at what was new for listings, what had gone under contract, what came back on the market, what closed. And I did that consistently every day. And I still do that because what happens is that starts to give you that database in your head of just the points of, okay, this came on, this went right under contract, this has been sitting, this went way over market. And then it helps you just to get familiar with your market. You can practice doing market analysis, do market analysis and send them to people to take a look at for you. But the more you can become an expert in your market and what's actually happening in your market, the better positioned you're going to be when you actually do start to get business.
Oh wow. And how was that runway for you? So within the first year, how's your first year, first 6 months? How and
Yeah.
you know, because I know you made that note about like taking time to build traction. I often hear
Yeah.
that you need like agents need like a 3 to 6 month runway. Does that seem like it's the right or kind of how did you kind of handle your first like 12 months or so?
I sort of hung on by the skin of my teeth, right? And I think that's one of the things that for new agents, always encouraging them before making the jump into real estate to have some savings in place so you have that bit of a buffer. Because what I see some people do too is maintain a full-time job and say, hey, I'm going to start on real estate, but they're so committed to their full-time job that they're not giving themselves, it's almost like they're not giving themselves a fair shot to give real estate 100% effort, and it's no fault. They don't have the financial capacity to do that. But if they've got that savings in place that can give them the space to get ramped up, that's going to help them get successful quicker. So I think that's the biggest thing too, is just maybe if you want to get started in real estate, plan it for a couple of years or plan it even for a year so that you've got a savings and you've got a buffer. Then when you decide to make that jump, you can go all in on it. Because what I think happens in real estate is that there tends to be a low barrier to entry in terms of the financial commitment for taking the class, the
Mhm.
time in, you pass a test, all of a sudden you're a realtor. And say, you wanted to go to nursing school or something. It's a 2 year commitment, it's a 4 year commitment, it's probably a six-figure investment. And because there's that lower barrier to entry, people have this mentality of, I'm just going to give it a shot. I'm just going to see what happens. And you see part-time agents that might be 2 deals a year, 4 deals a year, and that makes it really hard to build success on that because you're so committed at everything else that you're doing that you don't necessarily give real estate a fair shot. So I think having that commitment, if you do want to go all in, is really important.
Oh wow. And I feel like that makes me wonder, there's a word that you mentioned that stood out to me and you said manifest, especially with the Wonder Woman stance.
I
Is
stand-
that part of what you're saying as far as like the beginning, the manifestation? Was that something that was years in the making, or did that just start and kind of help you kind of like to make that transition full time? Or how does that play into like what you do now and how you started?
Yeah, so I would say it's a little bit of both. I think for me it was a sink or swim thing. I was a single mom with two kids, so I didn't necessarily have, like, it wasn't an option for me for it to not go well. So by that nature, it wasn't an option not to be successful, right? So I had to do everything I could to be successful, but I also was manifesting that at the same time. Like, I have a vision for my business. Like, I know where I'm headed. I know that it's going to be successful, but I'm also going to put in the work to make that happen. So I think the vision is really important, to know what you want. Like, I know you guys talk about life by design, and what does that look like in terms of the life that you want to live, right down to the free time that you have and how much money is in your bank account and how do you spend your free time and how do you interact with your loved ones. So I would say it was a little bit of both for me because I didn't have the option to fail, but I also was full speed ahead in terms of this is what I'm doing and it's going to go well.
Wow, that's amazing. And I think I want to, well, just kind of seeing where you are, and you mentioned just like manifesting and then being a single mom with two kids. Like, I think it's helpful for folks who are on this call to hear, like, who are maybe in challenging situations, maybe financially, or just kind of like spaces where
Yeah,
they're manifesting, right? But then like their current experience doesn't like match it. How does that kind of,
absolutely.
what kind of advice would you give to someone who's like not quite where they are, but they have this vision to get somewhere, like as far as like
Yeah.
steps to take?
That's such a great question too, because I think about that with manifesting, right? You can write down all these things, but part of it is actually putting in the work to get there
Mm.
and also surrounding yourself with the people that can help you get there, right? And that's one of the things I think that is so special about Visit Group, about EXP, because if you say this is where I want to be, there are so many people that you can reach out to that are going to provide you with the resources to get there. So I think the biggest thing is trying to keep that faith while you're bridging that gap to get there. But no, I never want to sugarcoat anything because it's truly hard work and you have to be dedicated and you have to put the time in and you have to be educated. But if you do all those things, it will come to fruition. My very first year, I did 6 deals and I think I made $18,000 and that's
Wow.
not much to live on. But then the next year it was, I doubled that. And then the year after that, it was, it just exponentially increased each year. But my business was growing. My skill set was growing and I stayed focused on that.
Wow, that's incredible. And I think that I don't know if I checked the MLS and try to get the numbers right. What's your current sales volume today? Is it 32 million in sales? Is it higher than that, or is it around there somewhere?
So I'm at 32 million year to date this year. Probably another 5 to 7 in the pipeline. So my goal for this year is to do 50 million as a solo agent, just in my own production. So I've landed somewhere around 40, 43, 44 in the past. And if, there's some listings that all pan out, I should be able to hit that 50 this year. So
Wow. That's
yeah,
that's incredible, and I'm sure that because real estate is such a transparent industry. I
yeah.
think sometimes folks who come from different spaces are shocked when they hear like people mentioning GCI, the numbers, and I guess for folks like, can you speak to kind of like, okay, what does your schedule look like? Look like it was you, did you start 8 years ago? Was it no
Yeah.
8 years
Yep.
ago?
Yep.
8 years ago
Yep.
compared to now, are you doing the same things? Are you doing anything differently? Like you're talking about 6 deals in the first year to now, it's like how many deals do you have? I mean, it's hard to keep track of.
Yeah, I think we're at like 40 something. So the biggest thing for me, and this is something that I'm really excited about, is that I now have an operations manager who is amazing and has helped me put a lot of systems in place.
Awesome.
And then I also have an executive assistant. And what I'm honestly most proud of this year is that I was on vacation 2 weeks ago with my family, and both of my kids said to me during that trip, Mom, you have never worked this little on vacation. Right. And that
Wow.
almost made me tear up multiple times because to me, like that's the biggest win is that I'm learning and figuring out what those resources look like so that my clients can be served and they can be served in a really great way and we can be successful and productive, but we can also have a life outside of that. So for me, I feel like a big part of what I'm figuring out now is surrounding myself with the right people who are incredibly competent and supportive and understand what it takes to manage all of this and are right there beside me. And I'm beyond grateful for that.
Wow. And that's a shout out to Marissa. I know the team, your team's awesome. Just fantastic.
I'm
So yeah.
that and that's what I mean when yeah, I feel so grateful for that because there's been other times in my life where I was on vacation and I spent a lot of time on the phone or not being present and life is too short to do that.
Wow. And okay, so like I have as you're talking, I'm getting so many questions. Also want to leave space for if anyone has any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat for Sadie. I can go on and ask a million questions. But I just wanted to make sure that if you guys had any specific questions you want to ask her or any notes, feel free to drop them in the chat or just unmute your microphone if you'd like to. And I just as I mentioned that, I just wanted to ask you another question. How is it? Okay, so 8 years in the business. How
Yeah.
has it been with work-life balance and trying to figure that out? Did you have to kind of like go like all the way in, or is it did you try to balance things out as you built, or kind of how did
I
that
would
work out?
say, yeah, that's a great question. I think that that's something that I still work on. I think that early on, I don't know that I really had that. It felt frenetic, and what I would love to do is help new agents not make the same mistakes I did, right?
Mm,
Because one thing I felt like when I first started is that I had to take every single bit of business that came my way. And what
wow.
that turned into was some clients that my gut reaction was this probably isn't a good fit. I should say no to this, but I didn't feel like I had the luxury to do that. But what it did is it took so much energy away from other things I could have been doing that would have been really positive business for me. So I've gotten better about discerning what's for me and what's not for me, but it took me a while to do that.
Okay, I was going to ask you about that because that's an important, note, especially for new agents who just like feel like you got to grab onto everything. I mean, how does that work as far as like your intuition or kind of what are some things that you see that tells you that a deal is something you shouldn't take? Is it just a listing? Or is it a buyer? Is it a type of client? Is
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
something else or?
Yeah, first thing is always follow your gut. If something doesn't feel right, it's probably not. Like just learn to trust yourself and your intuition. And then the second thing is if you got yourself surrounded by a great team and great professionals, you're doing that prep work, right? I know you guys have that 76 point touch system. And a lot of that too, like so much of what we do on our group is there's so much that goes into that listing prep from the repairs to the staging to how it's presented that by the time the listing hits the market we've already done a lot of work leading up to that. And what I find is that you have clients who want to be in partnership with you because they're looking to you as the professional to help them. Like we figure out what their goals are, how we help them maximize that. And if you're finding that somebody doesn't want to be in partnership with you, that's okay. It just means that they're probably not the right thing because some people have their own beliefs or their agenda or how they want something to do. I've done it before where I've taken an overpriced listing and I know it was overpriced and then it sat and then it didn't sell and then they're looking to you for answers and right at the beginning I knew it was overpriced. So that's something that I try to not do anymore because it's
Mm.
not worth it. Because all that time and energy that goes into that could have been spent cultivating somebody who truly wants to be in partnership with you as a professional.
Wow, I love the word partnership. And why that language? Is it sort of like better to kind of think of it that way as far as our clients and partnering them with them to buy or sell a property or
Yeah, absolutely. Like we help shepherd them through the process, but we need them to be on board with everything that we're doing and suggesting, right? Like I can come in and have all the best ideas in the world to bring their house to market and list it, but if there's a lot of resistance there, if they're not thinking that those are things that need to be done, then we're not going to be in alignment in terms of getting this house to market. But when you show people this proven system that works and you can demonstrate this is why we stage, this is why we do all these things, and they can see that and they're excited about that then it's a good fit. And then if somebody isn't necessarily willing to do those things, it might not be the right fit.
wow, that's so interesting. I think okay, so I had a question too in light of that. Of course, like now you have an incredible track record, so it's like I feel like with clients it's like a lot easier. But then how was it like in that first year to get clients to trust you in terms of like buying and selling the house? And then probably a second question is like how did you educate them in terms of like that partnership? Uh, and
Yeah, yeah. So I would say early on, I probably didn't have the skill set that I had. And I relied on a lot of market data and what I thought I knew. And then as I started to build my skill set, it became easier. But what I found when early on was that I just surrounded myself with people who knew a lot more about it than I did, and then I
Mhm.
could ask them and get help, right? So that's the biggest thing, especially if you're a new agent starting out. If you get yourself on a team with a lot of seasoned agents, you're going to have all those resources, and it's not just you going in saying, I'm here and I am can be of service to you. It's like I've got this entire team behind me and we've got a proven track record and a proven system. So if you're a brand new agent, if you have that team behind you, and you've got the resources, you've got the education, but then you've also got when you're interfacing with a client, you can say, I've got these other 8 or 10 or however many people behind me who are willing to be here and support me and work through that. So you can rely on their knowledge and rely on their knowledge, rely on their production, rely on all of that to get you going.
Oh wow. Okay. And I love that people being surrounded by the right people and this it's just beautiful. And I think that it mentioned yeah, I wonder another question too. It's like you have your team, right? Executive assistant and like admin now, but at what point, especially for new agents, like when do you think is the right time to begin to add people to your team or if you're not part, if you're not part of a team or like as far as like admin or
Yep.
is it a good time or kind of can you speak to that as well?
Yeah, I think the timing is when you're not servicing your clients in the way that you know that you want to be or should be, when you feel
Mhm.
things slipping, when in that it's a fine line between a lot of real estate agents are fiercely independent. Like, I've got this, I can figure it out, I can do it, right? But at the same time, you also want to keep your sanity and be able to service people in the way that you want to. So I would say maintain a clear understanding of like what your day is like, what your schedule is like, what you can really manage. And when that starts to feel, before you're overwhelmed, that's when you start to bring on that leverage. And that might be as simple as starting with a transaction coordinator that you outsource to take some of that off your plate, right? So start, you don't have to hire 5 people to start. Just add one person to help you out from a leverage standpoint, just to take that off your plate.
And real estate, you're saying TC is typically the transaction coordinator is the first start, or is that does it matter? Or?
So from my perspective, I think if you're that client-facing person, that might be the easiest person to start with. If you're a solo agent and want to add some leverage, I think that's the easy first hire, especially because that can be a person who's an independent contractor who's outsourced. So then
Mhm.
you're not worrying about payroll taxes and hiring people. If you bring on somebody that's an independent contractor, it can just be an easier transition for you until you have more of a structure built.
Super helpful. And I love that you said servicing your clients. So you have the team, like the support to help you focus on client facing. And I want to ask you, because I was curious, it's like, okay, you're part of EXP Luxury. How does someone get to the point of just like, within, X amount of years to go from working with clients selling homes under $1 million? So like, I feel like every time I look, it's like every property is like at or over $1 million. Like, how does that, how do you get to that point where you're working with like just luxury and these custom builds and for folks listening?
Yeah, a big part of it is educating yourself and getting yourself truly in relationship with people. And whether that's, and I know it sounds really simple sometimes, but think about like where are those areas in your community where you're being of service? Like where are those people? Are you serving on boards with these people? Are you in relationship with them somehow so that you come to be a trusted community member with them. And that's really important to put yourself in those situations where you're in relationship with these people because that trust happens organically.
Oh wow. And for you, kind of like where do you kind of typically find the most of your deals come from? Is it just all the above or just specific communities or is it just
So
data?
yeah, when I first started, I would say, definitely coming in through like the people I'd reached out to. Now I would say the bulk of my business is referrals from past clients. It's repeat business. I do a lot of new construction. And part of that for me, the new construction is really understanding the process, right down to new communities and attorney general approval and the special financing required, but then also respecting the process for the builder and knowing what they have for an investment and how important it is for me to do my job well to get a community marketed and sold out and understanding all the financing behind it. So having been through multiple sellouts on a community, being well versed in the whole process so that I take as much as I can off the builder and developer, and then I'm just bringing them deals. So the idea is be as much of a resource as you can for them. And again, it's just been just a lot of education around the process and being well versed in it. I
Wow.
have a lot of agents reach out to me around new construction because they don't always get the opportunity to work in that area. So, and again, from all brokers, just reaching out to try and get a better understanding of the process.
Wow, and how do you okay, so and especially in this market, hearing that it's a strange market as far as like trying to get deals and pricing and all these different challenges, but it seems like with in spite of that though, you're still thriving. It's like what advice would you give to folks who are kind of like struggling right now to do deals? Because in conversation with different agents, I'm hearing that pricing is often a big issue, like with
Yeah.
working with in partnership with sellers in particular. But how would you speak to the current market and any advice in that space?
Yeah. That's a great question. So your people are not alone in that. I'm struggling with that myself. In the last 24 hours, I've had two pricing conversations with clients about price reduction, like and
Happens.
again, very specific situations. And what I try to do in those conversations is lean heavily on the data. This is not my opinion. I'm not sharing my opinion with you. I'm showing you the market data. I'm showing you the market data in your community. I'm showing the market data for a house that's like yours. And the more data I can present to people, the more feedback I can give them around things. It doesn't come in as me having an opinion on the price. I just think it's overpriced. I go in and I've got a full detailed sheet of data that talks about why this price reduction is important, how it positions them in the market, the last, the most recent market in their area. So always rely on the market data so that you're not going in having an uneducated conversation. You're going in and you're showing them why you're asking them to do this price reduction.
Wow. And in that though, as well, do you also use, and that's super helpful. Do you use a specific script or is it just like depend on the client? Or, as for folks who may not know like the right words to say, because I feel like I love the
Yeah,
words that you use when you talk.
yeah. A couple different things. I would say it depends on the client, right? Because if it's, a luxury waterfront client versus newer home at a lower price point, different things like that. But I find the more different ways I can present the data to, sometimes I might look at it cost per square foot. Sometimes I might look at it in terms of a specific comp in their market that I know if somebody's coming in, they're going to be looking at, here's your direct competition in this market for this property. So the more information I can give them, I use things like cost per square foot. I actually will be looking at days on market. Like this was the actual days on
Mm.
market. This was the days to close. This is where we are right now in this particular market. So they can see all those different data points for their house and how it's stacking up against the current market. So it can inform those changes we need to make.
Oh wow, that's so helpful. And I think about data in light of just like the marketing and the branding side of it. How much does the data side play, that the hard numbers and hard facts play against like the just the marketing and being able to like, kind of like show people visuals, and does that also help as well too? Or
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think one thing people always have the question around exposure, like, well, is it a marketing thing? And what I want to do is be tracking all those numbers from an exposure standpoint so that we know if it's a marketing thing or not. If we're having the exposure, if we're having the views, if we're having the saves, if we're having the showings, 90% of the time we know it's not a marketing issue because we're reaching that audience because we're having the activity. But if we're not having the offer activity, what are those other data points that we're looking at, right? Are we getting feedback on the house? Is it feedback that we can do anything about, or is it feedback that we can't do anything about? And then how are we using that information to inform the decisions that we're making?
oh, that's incredible. And you're sharing so much value. I was sort of just drop another note that if there are any other questions, feel free to drop them. But I also want to ask about, in light of everything you're sharing, I see the agents helping agents, the AHA platform that you have as well.
Yep.
Now, how is that? Are these the type of conversations that you guys have in those calls, as far as like helping folks, for those who may need extra support or connecting with you outside of here as well?
Absolutely, yeah. And I think that's again one of the biggest values that we have at EXP is people that are willing to just pour into one another. And again, it can be as simple as this listing isn't selling. Can you take a look at it and tell me what you think I need to do differently? Or I have to have this difficult conversation with the client, like right down to role playing that conversation. If it's a price reduction conversation, if it's it can be as simple too. Sometimes people don't always realize like we have conversations that can be emotionally charged because it might be a conversation that's your house smells like cigarette smoke or your house smells like animals and we've gotten this feedback so we need to do something about it. So we can't just go in there charged and have an agenda. We have to be respectful of these people because we're going to their home. So how do we carefully have those conversations in a respectful way? So those are all things that we try to talk about at our agents helping agents. Right down to where are your lead sources coming from. And then, we actually had an etiquette coach come in a couple of weeks ago and it was right down to
Oh.
what is the proper etiquette on like handshakes and how do you dress for certain things and what's the appropriate amount of time to send a handwritten thank you note. And it was really fun because part of it is everybody comes from different walks of life, everybody comes from different backgrounds and skill sets and different jobs. So everybody needs different things in terms of helping them be successful. So we try to hit on as many of them as we can.
That's incredible, and I love that so much. And if folks want to connect with the AHA agents helping agents, how can they do that? Is it an email to your team?
Yeah, we can drop Marissa, do you want to drop your email in the chat and they can
Please.
get on the list to be chatting with us too. And we also do fun things too. We do goal setting every year. And one of the things that came up at the end of last year was everybody was talking about wanted to be in better physical health or mental health, and all of that was, wanted to lose weight. Some people wanted to gain muscle. Some people wanted to do, some kind of endurance race or something. So, in April, we ended up doing a 75-hour challenge for the entire group. So the biggest thing is it's not just all about selling real estate. Yes, it's a huge part of it, but how are we supporting one another as a group? And that's part of it too, is that like people can take vacations, people can be present for their families, but people can also be really supported in building the business that they want to build. That's everything.
Oh wow, that's amazing. And it's so valuable to me. It's important to me. So that's one of the reasons why I had this mastermind group, just to be able to share that, and just I love what you guys are doing as well. So it's like you mentioned it earlier about just helping, always being available to help and support other people, like whether they're new agents or not. And I also had another question too, as you're sharing difficult conversations. So and or objections. Okay, that's objection handling is always a big thing with like new agents, whether you're directly in real estate or just in business and sales and trying to build your business. How do you
Yeah.
handle those difficult conversations or objections, like as far as like your kind of like your flow, workflow or style?
Yeah. One thing I always say is that calm is a superpower, right? Just if you're the one staying calm, just whatever the situation is, somebody can come coming at you, you can be upset. Just when you stay calm, that's half like stay calm and stay focused. I would always encourage people to stay calm in any situation. That's going to help. But the other thing is practice ahead of time. Have your information together. Grab another agent. And the other thing too, there's so many AI tools where you can pop in that objection and be like, role play this with me. Give me a really hard
Ooh,
time on all my responses. Like that's a huge resource. So if you're a new agent and you need to practice and it's 10 o'clock at night and you're like, who can I talk to? Pop on Claude, pop on somewhere and just say, here's the objection. This is what I have to present. Be the most difficult client you can. And then let me practice my responses, but also give me feedback on my responses, right? So there's a way to do it in person with people, but also take advantage of AI tools that can help you work through that too.
wow, Sadie, that is a game changer. You got, can we just stay in that for a second? Like, so,
Yeah.
like, what do you? Okay, so what would you do? How would you prompt an AI to be able to have that conversation? Is there certain like prompts that you use for
Yeah,
folks?
so I used it this morning. I had all my data and I put in, I said I'm dealing with an older couple. They have a lot of things on their plate, dealing with health issues. I need to do a significant price reduction. Here's all my data, here's all my information. This is what I need to do. Here are my bullet points, but help me craft a really specific message so I can send an email ahead of time, then follow up with a phone call.
Wow,
And so I knew the message I wanted to deliver and I knew how I wanted the data to be presented, but what I'll try to do is put like my original thoughts, right? And then reach out to Claude and say, like, help me shape this, help me tailor this so that this is my audience. But again, it's all going to be data driven,
wow, it's amazing. And do
but
you?
also respecting where they are, respecting that they have so many other moving parts in their life and that, it might be different than, me having a conversation with somebody who's bought and sold 15 houses and hasn't been in the same house for 50 years because there's such an emotional attachment there. Like we have to honor that.
Yeah. As you're talking, my wheels are turning. I'm like, okay, I have so many more questions to ask.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask, okay, all right. So how do you, okay, for folks listening, how
Yeah.
would you, okay, first of all, my other question is like, which platform do you prefer as far as like, is it, you mentioned Claude, but is it ChatGPT? Is it Gemini?
So
Is it
chat is great, but we are getting a lot more into Claude and I feel like it's quickly becoming my new best friend.
really? And what's the
Yeah.
difference? Is it just like better prompts or just like more in depth or something else?
It feels less generic. It feels like I can it just feels like um it just feels like a deeper resource to me. I don't know if I'm not saying it just feels like a more in-depth resource in terms of
Okay.
its capabilities.
Well, that makes sense. I mean, in general, and I feel like in the context of objection handling, because that's like when I know new folks are starting out, they're like building their scripts and trying to figure out how to make those
Yeah.
cold calls. But then when you're hit with those objections, it's like, oh, sh it can be like, feel
Yeah,
like hitting a wall.
you freeze, and
Yeah.
then it feels like I don't know what to say.
Mm. And any advice in terms of how would you weave through? So would you have an objection, you kind of prompt it, but then like would you continue the conversation to a certain point, or you just kind of like how do you kind of like work? How would you work that? Oh, it's present.
I would keep, I mean, so here's the thing, right? You can have a difficult conversation and sometimes it just doesn't end well no matter what you do. You can be as prepared and right, it depends on the other party. But I find if both parties are willing to have a conversation and come to the table and want to move things forward, then there's usually always a way to resolve it. So in terms of working with it with AI, is I would just keep going in terms of I always want it to be more challenging, like challenge me harder, like challenge me harder. And then again, what like always looking for what those potential objections might be. You can ask the question like, are there any objections to this, to my value proposition that I'm putting forth? Are there any objections that I'm not seeing? Is there anything that I haven't thought of? Is there any reason why this might not make sense?
Wow, that's amazing. And I know one book that I read last year was Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. and it just
Mhm.
talks about he was like a world-class negotiator and talks about empathy and just sort of like these different mirroring. And it's really cool that as you're saying that, it's like, okay, you can talk to someone, but then an AI can help you with that. And Fresna, thank you for the comment. ChatGPT has helped her so much. Oh, it's awesome. Yeah, Fresna's fantastic. And I feel like I could go on and on and on, but I want to ask you just a question. Okay, of all the
Mhm.
things you mentioned here, and I love our conversations because there's so much value. But
Mhm.
like if you were to distill it down to kind of like one thing that you want everyone to take away from this call, because the folks are just trying to figure things out, trying to get started in this business, what would you say to them? Just open.
Yeah, I would say recognize all the people around you and what you can learn from them, right? Just go into it being a sponge, especially if you're a new agent. Just recognize that there's people around you that you can learn from. And as a new agent too, the flip side of that is you're going to run into agents that you don't want to practice like. One of
Oh,
my first transactions, I had a incredibly unkind agent, and I will readily admit she made me cry 3 different times, and she's still in business.
wow.
And I have a new agent that I'm working with, and they had an experience with this same person, and they said, "Wow, that was really brutal." And I was like, "This is just how this person practices." So when you think about starting out, put yourself in the rooms and be around the people that you want to practice like. And then also when you have, an experience that's not so great, learn from that too and be like, wow, that's not the agent I want to show up as. Because the biggest thing I think is that if I'm doing right by my clients, I want other agents to see my name on the other end of a deal and say, oh gosh, I love working with her. She gets things done versus I have deals sometimes where you see somebody coming in from an agent and it doesn't feel great because you know that it's going to be challenging and it's going to be, advocate for your clients all the way. Follow your fiduciary responsibilities, do everything you're supposed to do, but also be the easiest person in the world to work with.
Wow.
Right. And those two things can hold true.
Wow, that's incredible. Guys, I hope you just really that's like such a great piece of advice. And yeah, I wanted to open the floor to make sure like if there are any last minute questions that anyone has just have for Sadie. Because I have a million questions here that I feel like I'm asking. I'm super curious too, so like it works for me. Yeah, that's incredible. So be the best, be the person you want to work, like be the so you can you repeat that one more time? Like
Yeah,
be
so what I would say, right? So we have a fiduciary responsibility to our clients, right? We have all these things that we have a responsibility to do. Fiduciary responsibility, marketing, like due diligence, everything. Like do all of those things. Now, you can negotiate your very hardest on behalf of your clients, but also be the easiest person to work with while you're doing all those things. Like don't compromise anything about yourself and how you do your job, and you can still do all those things and still be the easiest person to work with.
see that's
Right? Like
incredible.
those two things can be true.
And because you're such a sweet, kind person, it's like like in this business where like all these people like are negotiating all these, doing these deals all the time.
Right.
How do you reconcile that? Is it easier for you to kind of do that now that you're like
It's
years in?
easier now, and sometimes and what I have to think about is like I have a fiduciary responsibility to my clients. My deal, always ask yourself in a situation like who am I working for, and you know who you're working for, and that's who you're advocating for, right? Keep that alignment at all times, right? There's no If you keep that alignment, then you're always going to do the right thing.
Well, and if okay, so then I have another question is if you're with someone who's like that agent who's very difficult to work with, how do you mitigate that when you're negotiating like a split or just like a part that's like a kind of like a part that you guys are kind of stuck on? How do you kind of mitigate that and
You
navigate that
just
with
pray for
someone?
them. No, I'm kidding.
Oh, oh no, okay, that's good.
Um,
I love that.
I honestly, I think that and this is true of anything in life, that there's some people that are just never going to be happy no matter what. And you know that, all right,
Mhm.
I just got to get through this one and then on to the next one. But for the most part, I think our agent community is very collaborative, right?
Yeah.
We have these agents, like when I work with one of your agents, like it's always we both advocate for our clients, and you can do that and you can maintain the respect in that while you're advocating for your clients, right? That those both of those things can be true.
Wow, that's incredible. And it's just so much value. Sadie, I just wanted to thank you so much for your time and just again, hopefully you guys are just blessed. I was just so blessed by everything she shared on here. And is there a way, the best way to connect with you? I know Marissa dropped her email in the chat. Is that the best way
Yeah.
to connect with you? And
Yeah,
as
and I can drop my number in here too.
oh, please, yes, I really appreciate that. And again, like Sadie is one of the inspirations for this mastermind. Just our conversation that we had some months ago when I was just starting out and trying to build. And so what she says is true. And she's helped me so much and been an inspiration to me. And hope the same for you guys. And really grateful for you and your team. Marissa, thank you for being on, and really appreciate you guys for taking time to be part of this incredible mastermind. So,
Thank you for doing this. I
oh.
love what you're doing and I love what you're building and I'm excited to be there and like watch your success.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Well, guys, so take care. Thanks for being here, and have a great rest of your week.
Thank you.